night, the city of Rancho Palos Verdes came out to honor one of their beloved city founders, Ken Dyda. His friends and family came out to share moments about what they remembered about Ken, and it was extremely touching. So, here are some of the thoughts from friends and family here at his remembrance today.
Tonight is a very special night for Rancho Palos Verdes because we are all here gathered to commemorate, to celebrate, to honor and remember one of our founding fathers, Ken Dyda, and all his contributions to our city, who celebrated 50 years just a few years ago. And many of our accomplishments and our celebrations are a testament to Ken Dyda's commitment to Rancho Palos Verdes and creating this city and making sure over its last 50 plus years that we are the city that we stand for today. And so tonight, I am so grateful to see this room filled with all these people who have come out on a Tuesday evening to be here for this public tribute to our founding father, Ken Dyda.
As of right now, I know you all realize his impact here with the city. He's been in my life for quite a long time. I've been with the family for 17 years now, so to me, he's part of my family. So that's also why I'm here, and I like to put this together. So obviously to start off, if I can get the first slide, please. So, strapping young lad, Ken was. So he grew up in New Jersey, and at the time he had a stepdad who grew up basically in a Polish area. Sorry if I'm going to ad-lib a little, it's been a minute. But he grew up there, and he spoke Polish, and he also had English as his backing. He learned what hard work was. He was able to get kind of that foundation early in life of what accomplishment was. And you can see kind of based on his school, there was a backing there that let him solidify who he was as a person from an early age. So next slide. Can I go there? Okay, so from an early childhood, his fascination with airplanes was keen. Other kids were playing around, doing whatever. Ken was there building airplanes all the time. He was fascinated by it, and if there was one dream that he had, and I can see this in all his photos from when he was a kid, that was his dream. He wanted to fly, he wanted to work with airplanes. To him, that was his dream. And as you'll find, that was his passion that he continued all the way up into his adulthood. So other than his biggest passion, right, going through high school, he met his first and only love, which was Lorraine. She was one of those people that, like any good love story, was the first person he ever fell in love with and never looked back. It was fortunate that I was able to actually see some of his prom photos that you see here. And that's both of them in that first left picture where they're just in there, living life, having a good time. And that same look is what I remember him, even, being older. He still gave her that same look when I first met him. He was always there. He was a very family-oriented person, and I can see it in the photos from there all the way up until his time of death. He always spoke highly of Lorraine. So it's very cool to see that in his pictures. At an early age, he managed himself. He would go out, he'd find paper routes, he'd find every conceivable way to make sure his dream would come true. So he would save his money, go out, and just make it happen. He had a dream that he wanted to do, and he put his mind to it. So he picked up odd jobs, found paper routes, and eventually found his way into college, and he sponsored it himself. And as you probably suspect, right, he got married to Lorraine. These are some of his wedding photos that he has. At the time, this is all they really had, is just themselves. He had almost no money. If I'm not mistaken, he had about $6 in his pocket, came all the way here to California, leaving her behind, getting her here eventually, but he started his life with basically nothing down here. And to watch him start from that nothing and just persistently keep working forward to basically have their lives together. And obviously with the Rancho PV stuff, he had a dream, and that man was basically dedicated to what he wanted to do. All right, next. And little family photos there. So with Beverly, we have Beverly and Bruce here. little bit of family life, splice of life. Originally, they went to Inglewood. I think that was their first house. They had that. They lived there for a while, and then eventually they made their way up here into the valley. Now, as again, passing down the values, with Ken, everything he did was family oriented. And being extended family, I see this, from my life, all the wisdom that he's passed down to myself, to Megan, to my wife, Melinda. My kids are now getting the run off of that as well. And just everything he did, he loved his family. He spoke highly of them. He always instilled those values of just family is the priority of life. And if there was anything else, it was basically them. It was either work and his passion, and then next was family. There was nothing in between that. So yeah, just little photos. There's Megan. There's grown-up Megan. There's a little you. And then, luckily, he was alive long enough to see my kids. These are the last photos that. The most recent one that they got to interact was him with the organ, showing them how to play. So I was blessed that he was around long enough to see them. And my oldest does remember who he is. So that was, a little bit on my end. So other than that, as you can see, this was a man with a plan. He worked in avionics. And I apologize if I'm ad-libbing a little bit because it's been a minute, but he was an aerospace engineer. He founded projects, and one of his biggest accomplishments was when people went out to fly, they had to use real airplanes. He pioneered a lot of the flight simulators that are out there to this day. Don't know how many people know that, but to me, that was truly remarkable of his skill. He allowed people to go in and get in a simulated environment so they do not have to risk their lives out in a real plane. And these are some of the projects that he's worked on. And the next slide, I believe, would be another one of what he was doing. Another fun fact for him, he actually was able to train Neil Armstrong, Scott Crossfield, and Buzz Aldrin. Most of these people that I didn't even realize he even talked to, but he had a lot of impact based on what he was doing with the aerospace, experimental planes, just anything avionics that was like the frontier of what we were doing in avionics. And again, it just shows from an early age on, he wanted to do that. And that was his dream, and he lived it every day. So his very, very first city council flyer is there on the left-hand side that you see. His last one, that was in 2015, would be on the right. So seeing him from when he started to how he kept going, he never stopped. And I'm sure everybody here can contest that he was always involved. When it was family or city, he was always there for everybody. He put himself, for others before himself. And again, I can't stress that enough. I can't, he was selfless. The true definition of selfless was what Ken Dyda was. There's no other way to put it. The history of Rancho PV, you guys obviously know this one. He started this with a group of people, but at the time, he basically served a total of 19 years. For this time, he wanted to have the dream. No crowding in the city, keep it open, keep the area looking nice and open, and keep the control of the city here. And throughout the years, you can see how the other places have developed. They've gotten congested, too much traffic, everything's gone disarray, but you come to the Rancho PV, it's beautiful. People are still having a community. It's not just industrialized. And that's thanks to him, along with the efforts of other people.
My dad, an amazing person that I've known. His love of his family, his love of his wife, but most importantly, he also loved the city. He put so much time and effort into building the city of what it was that it's just, I can't believe how much he's meant to this city. And to everybody here, much appreciated. He was just a great man. And I just wish he was around again.
Well, kicking it off for Ken is no mean feat, because little did I know when I landed here 4 years after they got this whole thing started, that what a wonderful city that they had created. And he was there not only from the beginning, but from before the beginning, trying to get it off the ground. And he served as mayor in 1978, just 5 years after the city was formed. And that's about the time I moved here. And little did I know he would serve on the council with me, or I would serve on the council with him years later, because he stuck around. He was always looking after the city. And when one of our council members passed away, he came back on the council many years later after his first stint of serving, and served again. And he was just a wealth of knowledge. He was a leader that we'll never forget, and an inspiration for all of us. And I especially loved it when he used to come to the 4th of July wearing his red hat, his patriotic hat. And this is the first 4th of July we've been without him. And for sure, we're going to miss him.
Well, I'll try to be brief here. It's not appropriate for me to take a lot of time and talk too much about a person I didn't really know well. I'm very new on the scene, and I only met Ken a couple times. He heard I was running for city council. He shook my hand, patted me on the back. That's about all the interaction I really had with him. So I'll leave the telling of the remembrances of him and the anecdotes of his life to those people that can really do justice to those things. But I do have a unique perspective as a new person here of what his legacy is. We've all through our lives been in different places, in different settings where you remember somebody from the past. And if you find somebody that was around long enough, they can say, oh yeah, I remember, Joe Blow, he did this or that. That's not an issue with Ken. I came in here and started going to city council meetings, and we'd open papers on some legal matter, and there's Ken's name, and then walk down the hall, and there's his picture 3 or 4 times, and then I look, and there's some founding documents that he wrote, and this guy did a lot of stuff here, and it really became quite apparent that he's not just a founding father of the city, not just its patriarch, but a titan, and we won't have to try to remember him. We won't be able to forget him. He's ever present. His fingerprints are on everything here, and that is the legacy of somebody who's truly committed, and it stands out amongst all the others. So I tip my hat to him.
So I want to talk a little bit about Ken's continuing presence, and it's well beyond the fact that he's named as the Ken Dyda Civic Center. That's easy. But what did Ken really bring to the city that I don't think anything hasn't already been mentioned, but I'll tell my version of this. It was really a whiteboard when the city started, and things didn't have to turn out the way they have in the last 50 years. So why they did, to a great extent, was our founders, and a big part of that was Ken, and the fact that Ken was the longest speaking voice for that, a voice of 50 years. From 1973 to actually in council to the end of 2022. And 3 examples of that to show the impact and the importance is I'll mention first, fiscal responsibility. That's what we were founded on. And if you think through all the decisions that have made based on that establishment of principles to run the city financially sound, in our current crisis, we wouldn't been able to get through the crisis that we're working our way through. We're still in an emergency, but we're working our way through because Ken setting that foundation and putting that in place, and the people that followed that and following that model that was established has helped us to survive and to help us to work our way through. While we'll all miss Ken, we're knowing his presence in the city will continue, since he was the key to writing the script of our city. Thank you.
My family moved to the peninsula in 1972, so I have only known the city of Rancho Palos Verdes with Ken Dyda being part of the driving forces behind the city and in the city. As a fellow aerospace engineer, I really enjoyed serving on the council with Ken. Ken and I were of similar persuasions. We looked at things somewhat similarly, though we did have disagreements. But we were always respectful. We always enjoyed each other's company and the individual perspectives. Something the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned was the tenor of the city that he helped create. I will say that a couple years ago, I had the opportunity to sail past the peninsula, and looking up at Palos Verdes is truly an amazing feat. In fact, the person I was sailing with was from out of the area, and the person turned to me and goes, "How come all that land is undeveloped? That's not anywhere in California." And I said, well, that's all due to one of our founding fathers and the fact that we have one of the largest preserves of any city our size, but it was all based on the founding principles that Ken helped implement for this city.
So much of his legacy is so obvious, but there's so many people that see something in life that they want to be better, or they want to preserve, or they, wish they could do something, and they don't. They sit on the sidelines. But Ken really dedicated his life to making sure that, as we've been talking about, that this beautiful coastline was preserved, the low density was preserved, and that really was paradise in your city. But the reason I wanted to come tonight was just to also say that, whenever Ken would talk about the city becoming incorporated, how much work there was, all the committees that worked so hard to incorporate the city, he never failed to thank my dad. My dad was a county supervisor at the time. And, this was unincorporated, which county supervisors love unincorporated because it's all ours, right? We're actually the mayor of our unincorporated places. We get to make all the decisions. Everything that happens in unincorporated county has to come through the supervisor. So it's very difficult for a county supervisor to actually support the incorporation of a city, because it basically means this city wants to divorce you, right? They don't think that you're going to do a good job protecting it. They don't think your values would be as important as the values that the city would follow. So it takes 3 votes on the Board of Supervisors to do anything. And so to get it on the ballot, right, for the residents to vote, it had to have a vote of at least 3 of the county. And at the time, he had 2 very strong allies on the Board of Supervisors, but he needed a 3rd. And so he never failed to say that it was my dad that became his ally and cast the 3rd vote.
Verdes residents know and love today. On behalf of Senator Ben Allen, it's my privilege to present this resolution in honor of Ken Dyda's extraordinary life and public service. May his legacy continue to live on in the city he helped create, the coastline he helped protect, and the generations of residents who will benefit from his vision for many years to come. Thank you.
I was the one who presided at the funeral for Ken last month, and Lorraine as well. So I had a great time with. I was his pastor for 26 years. But I have a memory of Hess Park. It was when I was trying to get a church built. And I was this new kid in RPV, and it wasn't exactly people excited about it. In fact, it was rather contentious meetings. We had 4 meetings with the Planning Committee before it got approved, and then 5 more with City Council. And then the city and ourselves got sued as well. But the other thing that happened was these meetings at Hess Park these two seats here in front row with Ken Dyda and John McTaggart. And they came to give me support. And I'll never forget that. I appreciated that so much.
Whether good or bad, Ken was instrumental in having me run for council. He and Mr. Matthews back in 08, 09 were looking for somebody to put up for council. And Mr. Matthews was very friendly with my father. He knew Ken, so they started talking to me, and I was very much into politics and wanted to get involved. So there was a good lobbying effort. Anyway, come 2011, Ken and Mr. Matthews put the hard press on, and I said, "It's a good time for me. Let's go ahead and do it." Interestingly enough, after he got me to run for council, he threw his hat in the ring and ran for council against me. Not against me, not at all. We ran as a tandem team. We were both very, very involved and wanted to see some remediation with the slide. We were very passionate about that, amongst several other things. But
So I had the good fortune of getting to know Ken in my very first run for city council in 2011. The race that Jerry and I know Susan know oh so well. It was an interesting experience to get to know Ken through that. As a candidate, someone who's rather new to the community, I really appreciated and drew a quick affection to Ken. Even though we were separated by nearly 50 years, his passion for community aligned with mine. And for that, I found a friend. And I was very blessed and fortunate to spend 5 years at the dais close to him, listening to his words of wisdom, his thoughts, which made me better at the work that we got to do collectively as a community.
There's something magical about this peninsula, and you don't know what it is until you actually are here and you start to meet the people that are behind all of that. And it's not just Ken Dyda. Ken was obviously the founder of many things, but all these people around us, all the people in the audience, you know, they're the ones that made this community great. I always told people that when I was on the city council, it was easy to do that because you had people like Ken Dyda that were sitting right next to you, helping you all the time, and you had the community that was there, always giving you wisdom and advice. And one thing Ken always taught me is that, you know, you have to be bold about who you are. You know, he would, as Jerry had mentioned, he certainly wasn't shy. Like when he had a passion about something, he would speak out. And that's one lesson that I always try to tell people now when they're considering being a part of their community and doing something like being on a committee or commission, is that you have to first learn to speak up. And I learned that from Ken Dyda.
Good evening. My name is Douglas Stern. I had the honor of serving in those chairs for about a dozen years, more than a dozen years ago. And one of the most significant aspects of what I'm about to say, I'm going to say right now. I walked out of here, this chamber, December of 2011, and this is the first time I've come back. And I did it because I want to honor a man for all the reasons everyone has already said. Ken Dyda was a fabulous person. I'm not going to repeat what people have said. I just want to make a couple simple observations. He served on our first council in the 70s and 80s. He didn't serve in the 90s, but he served in the 2000s, albeit only for about 3 months. Then in the 2010s and 2020s, almost every decade that this city has existed, and it's now 52 years, Ken Dyda was sitting in one of those chairs. And when he wasn't in those chairs, as everyone has said, he was working behind the scenes, helping everyone else. He certainly gave me advice, gave me some of his ideas, and I'm very grateful for them.
I knew Ken for a short number of years, not 52, but I knew of him 52 years ago because we lived out here at that time. I remember some snippets of different things that I'd like to share with you. When he was running for the city council the last time, I would campaign with him on the east side of the peninsula. No candidate ever walked down the streets down PB Drive East. Ken did. he walked up and down those streets, and I rode up and down those streets with my car. As he walked, he knocked on doors, asked people to put a sign in his driveway, in their driveway, and I would be the one putting it in the driveway. And we did this many weekends. I supported Ken on that campaign, and we had a get-together at my home for him and Jerry DeHovick. And all of our neighbors came, and we had a great time, and Ken was always a gentleman.
The city had hired us, and he had set up a series of meetings with the public to discuss the concerns the community had about the landslide. I was struck by his energy and how he was concerned about all of the things: the shoreline water quality, the roadway, the properties, the homes, the wildlife. Preserve the preserved, he would say, several times to me. It was clear to me he loved this city, and he loved the people in it. It kind of startled me. He grabbed me around the shoulder and said, "John, this landslide has been studied to death, and I don't want to study it anymore. I want to do something about it. What can we do?" And I said, "We can study the hydrology." We needed that to come to the engineering solutions we got to quickly thereafter. But I was so struck with his energy. At times, you know, some of these meetings go to 10 or 11 at night. I'm sort of hanging in there with a cup of coffee. But Mr. Dyda was full steam ahead. He was just a force. I love the guy.
When I moved here 9 years ago and fulfilled a dream of moving myself and my family up here, one of the first people I met was Ken Dyda at St. John Fisher Parish. And I didn't really know anyone, but he came over and introduced himself. I'd heard the name, as many of us had. And then he graciously invited me to his home, introduced me to his lovely wife, Lorraine, and then took me into his den. And several hours later, I realized that this incredible man had lived several incredible careers, and he had forgotten more than I would ever know. He became a fast friend, and I worked on his last campaign. I felt honored to know him, and through him, I got a chance to meet many of you. And, you know, they say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, so I'll say this, that if I ever grow up, I hope I grow up to be just like Ken Dyda. Thank you.
For this region, not for the city. His fingerprints are everywhere about the protection of coastal and the city logo that we're looking at. I know that he was part of this subcommittee that defined the reflection of this logo that tells us the land, sea, and the characteristics of the city. His fingerprints is everywhere. He will never be forgotten. We all will miss you. And for the family from the city of Torrance, we have this special certificate of recognition for his services. Thank you.
I just want to add something as a reminder. I couldn't possibly add to what everyone has said, but during the early 2000s, let's not forget what he did for Peninsula Seniors. He was the president of Peninsula Seniors for most of the early 2000s. So I just wanted to add that so that people didn't forget that part. When he wasn't on council, he was still leading Peninsula Seniors as president.
I'd like to say a few words about Ken, and mine come from a very personal space and place. I first met Ken in 1999. You do the math. And I was a young planner that came to the city of Rancho Palos Verdes as an associate planner. And one of the first projects that I was introduced to was the Marymount expansion project. And I remember meeting Ken because there was a coalition that had concerns regarding the project. I'm being very diplomatic here, but had concerns. And I remember that first impression I had meeting Ken and a few others, and I was like, who is this person? And I kept asking that question, who is this person? And he had this presence about him that really stuck with me. And through the years and through my growth in the planning department, I had the opportunity to serve as a staff liaison on various committees, and maybe Doug Stern remembers some of those committees that were formed, like the Residential Development Steering Committee and the Neighborhood Compatibility. I got all those projects, and Ken Dyda was part of those committees, and he taught me so much, and he made a point to be sure to let me know why we do the things we do in Rancho Palos Verdes and the reasons behind everything. And he introduced me to the goals report. And he said that goals report is so important because that is the first document that we implemented that set the framework and the foundation to the adoption of the general plan. And the planning department spent years updating the general plan, and at the end, the general plan was essentially the same document with a cosmetic makeup, where we just changed the cover page, but all the policies, all the goals, they were all the same. They were all the same that derived from that goals report. And Ken said to me, he said, at this point I was the deputy director in the community development department, and he said, you need to make sure this document is given to all new staff so they understand. And he has said that to me over the years, and when I became city manager, he said that to me, and I said, I will always do that. And I used to do that in the planning department whenever I hired a new planner. And then when I became city manager, he was on the council, and he reminded me that, and I said, I will always give that handout to all new hires so they understand it, and I do. I do that to this day. We have an orientation. I do a meet and greet with all the new hires, and I sit them down and I give them this document that is stapled together, and it's in this old font. And these young people are looking at it going, "What is this? How come I can't get it electronically?" And you can. It's on the city's website. But those were the stories that I learned and appreciate from Ken. But there was the other side, the person and the friend he became, especially the last 10 years. He became a very close friend to me. And I know when I lost both my parents, how he reached out to me and was a person that, especially as city manager, and I lost my father a few years back, and I would turn to him, we would have our one-on-ones, and many times we didn't talk city business or other things. We would talk about flying, and he would give me these envelopes and say, you open this later at a different time, and they were all very special. But I would turn to him and I said, Ken, I have a problem. I've got this thing. How do I fix this? And what do I do with this? This is something my dad would always help me. And he always was there to help me. And I'll tell you, in the years that I've known Ken, I don't think he expected anything like this tonight. That's not why he did what he did. It wasn't why he got involved in civics, to be recognized. And when the idea came up to recognize or rename the Civic Center, he was very touched, very honored by that. And we had conversations about that. And he said to me, that's not what I want. That's not important to me. But I appreciate it and I respect it, and it was unprecedented. There's a city council policy that says how you name facilities after people, and we thank you, Councilman Bradley, for bringing this up, and we went full force with this. And he was on the council at the time, and he just stood back and was in awe by all of this. But he never did what he did for this type of recognition, which is why it makes it so much more meaningful.
Ken came back into my life later with the Historical Society when he was going to go back on the city council, and he needed to resign his position as president of the Historical Society. So he invited me to lunch at the Red Onion, and by the time I was half crocked on margaritas, I found my signature on the line to be the president of the Historical Society. And so I am instrumental in his return to the city council.
So I volunteered for several years for Peninsula Seniors. And in that time, I was told repeatedly that Ken Dyda had a very strong personality. There were hints that maybe I should be intimidated by him. Anyway, ultimately, I did end up meeting Ken Dyda. He was fantastic. I will never understand why people were intimidated by him or afraid of him. I found him to be fantastic. I found him to be helpful. His fingerprints are on everything that was ever done, including Peninsula Seniors. He was such a wonderful friend to me, and he truly is one of the greatest men I've ever met in my entire life.
Just one other thing about Ken. I tell people that talking to Ken about the city is like talking to George Washington about the country.
You know, when I reflect upon Ken, especially what everybody was saying tonight, what was really important to him was not just the creation of the city, but it was also preserving its history. And when I first got on at the library in 2012, somebody called me and they said, "You got to meet Ken Dyda. He's got all of these boxes of historical materials." And I called him, I went to his house, we sat out in front of his driveway, and I looked at the 20 boxes stored in his garage, and I said, yes, I will take those boxes. But I think I must have sat there for stayed with him for about 2 hours, furiously writing notes because he was telling me all about the history, and I wanted to make sure that I captured it. And we are even now processing that collection. I have finally a dedicated volunteer who has been helping me go through the collection, and we're seeing all of the cases that were sent before the supervisor's office, McTaggart, all of these names have been coming up, and it's really amazing to see it. And I'm so glad that I reached out to him and that we actually connected so that we could preserve this really important part of the peninsula's history, and especially for Rancho Palos Verdes.
The late Kenneth J. Dyda will be remembered as one of Rancho Palos Verdes' greatest founders and leaders of all time. A founding father who was still serving on the city council at age 90. Dyda was 94 when he passed away in January, leaving behind an extraordinary legacy of public service. His vision to protect the coastline, preserve open space, and maintain local control helped shape Rancho Palos Verdes into the beautiful community it is today.
I'm proud to be a part of this city. It's our paradise.
At the city's 50th anniversary celebration, Dyda expressed heartfelt gratitude to the residents and everyone who supported him throughout his remarkable journey. A New Jersey native and award-winning aerospace engineer, Ken moved to the Palos Verdes Peninsula in 1961 with his beloved wife and high school sweetheart, Lorraine. After settling into their forever home in Grandview Estates, he followed Lorraine's advice to get involved with the community and become a driving force.
I started when I first moved to the city back in 1961, and I formed the first homeowners association in our area. I attempted to get that and the Silver Spur people involved in annexing to Rolling Hills Estates at the time, and that was in '62. Then time came for SOC to be born.
Dyda was a pivotal leader of SOC, Save Our Coastline, a grassroots movement to protect the peninsula's coastline from overdevelopment. The successful movement led to the incorporation of Rancho Palos Verdes in 1973. Dyda later published a report so we would never forget the historic fight and sacrifice to create the peninsula's fourth city.
It was a total community peninsula-wide effort. They were very concerned about the fact that the development plans in the unincorporated area were going to be very, very high density, completely out of keeping with what the rest of the peninsula was. And it would really ruin the peninsula.
Thankfully, RPV was incorporated and Ken Dyda was elected to the very first city council, and over 5 decades served a combined 18 years on the council, including 2 terms as mayor. He completed his final term in 2022, just before the city turned 50. That same year, the Civic Center was renamed the Ken Dyda Civic Center in recognition of his unmatched service.
It's a very honor to be that, but I'm so humbled because I never expected it. This is my city. I worked for it, and I'm going to continue to work for it.
And the work he did, his fingerprints are everywhere, from the city's general plan to countless measures protecting scenic views, preserving low density, and addressing the Portuguese Bend landslide that was his highest priority, as he authored state legislation creating geological hazard abatement districts to assist landslide-affected communities. Dyda also served on dozens of commissions, committees, organizations, devoting years to Peninsula Seniors and the Palos Verdes Historical Society. He loved city events, classic cars, and sharing all that he knew about RPV. Dyda was a great-grandfather devoted to his family, his faith, his friends, and he remained engaged in city affairs until just months before his passing, even enjoying a surprise visit from city staff on his 94th birthday. At his last official council meeting, Dyda received the sign that said it all. He made it happen the Ken Dyda way. He showed us the way and wore many hats, wearing his favorite hat proudly every 4th of July.
I don't know if you realize it, but the council passed a resolution. I'm not allowed to come without my hat.
Hats off, Kenneth J. Dyda, our beloved city founder. Thank you for your unwavering leadership and for preserving paradise for generations to come.
And I will always remember you, Ken, with that red, white, and blue hat on that you wore every 4th of July. We had so many lovely interviews, and thank you for all of your knowledge and friendship. That will do it for the show. Thanks for watching. I'm Maria Sorreo, and we'll see you next time.